What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Stochastic channel, talking some college football DFS ahead of the Week 8 Thursday slate. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you by PrizePicks. They have a deal for new users. With your first deposit, you can get that matched up to $100, and they're giving you one free month of OddsShopper. We have all sorts of betting tools to help you with sports betting, sides, totals, all the way down to the player prop level, which helps you with PrizePicks. They have player props for NCAA, NFL, MLB still in the playoffs, NHL, and NBA both coming back. They've got it all, as well as niche sports. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to play. The link is in the video description below to take advantage of all of that. All right, 2-game slate on Thursday. It's a fun one. We've had kind of awesome Tuesdays, greasy Wednesdays, and then really fun Thursdays. We kick this one off with Rice taking on Tulsa. This is a fun game. Total at 57.5. Two terrible defenses. So we should see a lot of points. Rice is allowing 8.5 yards per attempt to opposing signal colors. Tulsa is not much better at 8.1. Tulsa is the favorite in the game, 3-point spread, 57.5 total. Both teams are decent in terms of pace. Rice is slowed a little bit. They're 89th, but they have a 64% pass rate, full air raid. Tulsa's faster, 57th. Their pass rate's only 37%, but they've had a ton of quarterback injuries. So I do expect them to pass more now that they have Braylon Braxton back in some capacity. Starting with Rice, we've got JT Daniels under center, pure pocket passer. Negative 58 rushing yards in the year. The guy's just going to take sacks. It's what he does. And he doesn't run at all. 34 attempts per game. He is averaging 303 yards, which is pretty good for this quarterback. I don't think he's going to have any problems getting there against Tulsa. So immediately he's a decent price-adjusted play. You just hope this isn't a game where he takes 4 or 5 sacks and gets you negative 50 yards or something like that. But Daniels firmly in play. The backfield is a committee, and they don't run a lot to begin with, so it's pretty tough to play these guys. The only one I have interest in is Dean Connors, and it's solely because he's the pass-catching back. He has a 50% route share on the year, and we've seen this actually jump to 55-60% in some of the recent games. Juma Otoviano does not have a pass-catching role. Only 21 rush yards per game. Maybe he falls in the end zone. But other than that, I don't have a lot of interest in Dalen Alexander. He only played 1 snap last game. Ari Broussard, only a couple snaps. It's Dean Connors, and it's Dean Connors because of the pass-catching role for me. In the receiving game, Luke McCaffrey is one of the bona fide alpha receivers on this slate. There's not really too much to say about McCaffrey. His price has come down, which is, I think, makes him a priority on this slate. The target share is awesome for him. Routes line up with whatever you'd want an alpha receiver to be. Wide receiver 2 is Rawson McNeil. His routes jumped all the way to 96 in the last game, and he had 15 targets. Just a monster day for Rawson McNeil. Think he's fine. And then you've got Braylon Walker as your wide receiver 3. His routes have bounced between 66 and 84% over the last 30 games, but pretty consistent role for Braylon Walker. The tight end is Broden Grown. He has a good route share as well. It's been between 58% and 71% over the last 4 games. He'll split time a little bit with Jack Bradley, but Grown has kind of asserted himself ahead of Bradley, which was a surprise to me. I think all these guys are fine price-adjusted plays. The best one outside of McCaffrey would be Rawson McNeil, just really good route share, 4,600. There's no reason he should be cheaper than Braylon Walker. On FanDuel, it is the exact opposite, though. You have McNeil price well ahead of Walker, so I would just flip them in terms of preference on who to play in your lineups, depending on the site. For Tulsa, Braylon Braxton made his triumphant return in the 4th quarter of last week's game, played pretty well. Not that Cardell Williams has played poorly. He's averaging like 9 yards per pass attempt, but I think they're both going to play. The coaching staff would not name one of them a starter, which is really problematic for DFS. Braylon Braxton is a much better rusher than Cardell. If you could guarantee me he played all the snaps, I would definitely have interest. But with a platoon somewhat likely, I think I'm just going to be out on Tulsa signal callers. Maybe a random GPP Braylon Braxton, but don't feel good about that. Running back Taj Gary is doubtful for Tulsa. We've seen him miss time a little bit earlier this year. And Anthony Watkins has a very good opportunity share to begin with. The guy's averaging 16 and a half touches per game. In 2 of the last 3 games, we've seen him up above 20 touches. So I think without Taj Gary, he's the guy we can look to. Jordan Ford should be the change of pace back. He is averaging 10.7 touches himself. So I don't want to just ignore Jordan Ford, especially on a slate that's only 2 games. You can play him for value, and I don't even dislike him with Watkins in the same lineup. This team is only passing 37% of the time. Receiver, Marquise Shoulders is expected to miss this game, which leaves Devon Williams as the presumed wide receiver 1 for this team. Again, they haven't been throwing a lot recently. This is severely dropped off, but his route share is still right in line with what you'd expect. The player that saw the biggest bump in routes was Camden Benjamin. He went from 65% up to 90%. 5 targets for him. He's 3,400, so he'd be your premier value play if you need one. And then they rotated their wide receiver 3s quite a bit. We saw Braylon Presley with the 7-target outing, but he only played on 30% of the routes. Firmly rotated with Carl Chester, Nick Rempert, and Malachi Jones. It was basically a 4-man rotation for this wide receiver 3 spot outside of Devon Williams and Camden Benjamin. Where we did see some routes consolidate was tight end. Luke McGarry's routes jumped up to 60% at the expense of Ethan Hall, who was down at 27. Maybe you throw a dart on Luke McGarry, but honestly, with Camden Benjamin being 100 more, I don't see the need to play any of the other Tulsa pass catchers not named Devon Williams. It's tough to play anyone in a 4 wide receiver rotation. I would have the most interest in Nick Rempert and Malachi Jones if you force me to pick one, but I don't think I'll get there. Before we get to game 2, I want to tell you about some of the tools you're looking at. I've been told to not talk about these at the end of the show so more people see. But anyway, we have a package for college football data that gives you access to this sheet. If you're watching the video, that means you don't have to pause the video, squint to see it. You can do whatever you want for as long as you want. It's available in the link in the video description below. And along with that, we have player projections. We have ownership projections, access to Discord where I will answer all your questions. Just tag me. But yeah, it's kind of my baby. So if you want to support, that's the best way. And if you've done that, thank you. It truly means a lot. Game 2, James Madison takes on Marshall. James Madison's a 3.5-point favorite. Total's 52. Marshall plays pretty fast, 41st in pace, 48% pass rate. James Madison, 91st in pace with a 46% pass rate. James Madison's been hyper efficient this year. I don't think Marshall's truly been tested, and Marshall actually has quite a few injuries. None of them to skill position players. Well, actually, there's a couple skill position players. We'll get there. But anyway, I think this defense might be a little weaker than people think. They're actually allowing 6 yards per carry to opposing backs. Jordan McLeod definitely takes advantage of that. He has good mobility, 128 rushing yards on the year. Pretty efficient as a passer, 231 yards through the air in just 26 attempts. Think he's a completely fine signal caller. I'd rank him. I mean, there's kind of like a 3-quarterback log jam at the top. I would probably say McLeod and Fancher are the best for cash, but JT Daniels right there as long as he doesn't take 100 sacks. The backfield, Kalon Black leads a committee that also features Tyson Lawton. 17.7 touches per game for Black, 8.5 for Lawton. They've also condensed this rotation. Latrell Palmer did not play last week. I don't know if this was an injury. James Madison's hard to get injury information on, but he didn't even see a snap. So this could be injury, could be performance. I'd watch him pregame. Maybe unlikely we get a report anyway, but he wasn't really that involved to begin with. What Latrell Palmer did, his absence that is, just gave more opportunities to Black and Lawton. In the pass game, it's pretty condensed at the top 3 guys. Reggie Brown, Elijah Surratt, and Phoenix Sproles are the top guys you need to know. They've sort of trimmed the fat on this rotation as well, where we don't have as many players getting one-off snaps, things like that. To be specific, Elijah Surratt, 91% of routes last game. Reggie Brown, 82. Phoenix Sproles, 61. That was actually a season low for Sproles. He's been above 70% in every other game. They absolutely clobbered Georgia Southern, so I wouldn't read too much into this. Think he's completely fine. And then tight end Zach Horton plays every single snap too. He hasn't dropped below 85% of the routes in any of the last 5 games. You have to go all the way back to week 1 to find a game where he was below 85%. So pretty clear they don't rotate a ton. I don't even think we need to talk about the players like Tajee Hudson, Yamir Knight. Honestly, I think their numbers might be inflated because they crushed Georgia Southern. There's a chance these guys don't even play a snap in a game like this. Moving to Marshall, slight underdogs. Pretty good team to target for DFS. Cam Fancher has really good mobility, 196 yards. They're also giving him pretty decent opportunity, 35 attempts per game. Fancher kind of has it all, and I'm hesitant to rank him as my number 1 quarterback because I don't think he's that talented. But man, he's actually, his efficiency stats pretty good, volume good, rushing ability there. I think he is the number 1 price-adjusted quarterback on this slate. But we can also play him with his running back, Rasheen Ali. Like, this offense is so condensed between Fancher and Ali. I have no issues playing them together. In fact, I think you should be doing that in cash games. Ali has one of the best opportunity shares in the country. He's averaging 24 touches per game, well over 100 yards, all the pass catching work. He's averaging 4 targets per game over their last 4. I mean, he's one of the best running back plays on any slate, any 6,700. He should be 10K on this slate. You are getting a 3,300 price discount on DraftKings by playing Rasheen Ali. FanDuel, he's really expensive, but honestly, there's a lot of opportunity costs. Like, I would rather just lock in the touches with Ali than, I don't know, play one of the timeshare backs for Rice or something. At receiver, we do have 2 injuries to mention. Cade Conley, their tight end, has not played in 2 games. Caleb McMillan also missed their last game. So the coaching staff for Marshall is just not going to give it to you straight. Allegedly, Cade Conley was cleared, then he didn't play. So clearly something happened. I don't know what it was. And their head coach quoted Nick Saban saying, "Don't ask," when reporters wanted to know about injuries. He's not required to tell you, so I would probably do the same, even though I hate it in my position. Anyway, he's important because he had like a 90% route share prior to the absence. So without Cade Conley, instead of going right to their backup, they essentially decided to go 4 wide. So this has pretty big implications for the team, not just Conley himself, but what they decide to do in his stead. The backup tight end, Chris Motillo, only a 50% route share. So as you can see, that's 50% of the routes that went to a receiver instead of a tight end. Anyway, Caleb McMillan did not travel with the team last week. He was a 55-ish% player before leaving, so he also vacates a lot, and I think he's less likely to play. Not even traveling is a bad sign. But anyway, like, this team has a disaster rotation. Caleb Coombs, 64% of routes. Darrell Simmons, 55. Jaden Harrison, 35. DeMarcus Harris, 66. Chuck Montgomery, 41. Mason Pierce, 59. I mean, we talked about Chris Motillo, 52. They don't have anyone above 65% of the routes. I mean, this is a complete mess. If you're playing anyone, I think you're just going all the way down to like Darrell Simmons at 33. He does have 16 targets over the last 2 games, so he's probably a candidate for more work as well. But otherwise, like, if you're throwing darts on these guys, like Harrison at 44, DeMarcus Harris at 42, Chuck Montgomery at 38, Mason Pierce at 32. I guess he's a little more live. This is really volatile. They're mix and match plays, tournament plays if you're trying to get off of some of the other cheap chalk like Phoenix Sproles. But man, like, just play the James Madison guys. Just go play like your cheap Tulsa guys. I don't think there's any need to do this unless you're playing only the biggest of tournaments. And honestly, the tournaments aren't really that big on a weekday slate, so I don't know if you need to. Anyway, that'll do it for us today. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, would love to hear it. And reach out to me on Twitter if you have a question. I'm at Matt_Gajewski. Otherwise, we will be back tomorrow for the Friday slate, as well as the main slate. Until then, good luck, everyone. We'll see you soon.